Oh, we're going to get to this KU professor. Man, this guy, what a piece of work he is. But there is plenty to catch up with and talk about with our good friend, Chris Stigall. He is now, as many of you know, the Director of Content and Communications for the Herzog Foundation here in Kansas City. Chris, how are we? Good morning, my friend.
Oh, brother, so good to see you. I mean, despite what I know everybody's feeling, a little ache about last night. Man, that hurt if you're a Royals fan. And here's my dilemma, if you could help me with something. I don't mean to turn this into my own therapy session. I've been offered the opportunity to go visit the stadium tonight and watch this fourth game with a friend. And I hate sounding like a fair weather fan, but, you know, we both get up early. And all I'm thinking is now, I hate saying this, I don't like our odds. And do I want to stay up late and lose sleep on a Game 4 that I'm not feeling optimistic about? Does that make me an ultimate fair-weather fan, Pete?
Yes, is the short answer. Okay. Now, let me explain, though. Here's the thing. If this was a Chiefs divisional round matchup where they're favored by 2 touchdowns and you've seen Chiefs playoff games in the last few years, I'd say, Chris, stay home. First baseball playoff game in this town in almost 10 years. It's the hated Yankees.
Yeah.
You force a Game 5. I think you got to be there, Chris.
I will. I'm going to go. I'm just going to whine about it. And I'll call myself real smart if we win tomorrow in the morning. And I'll say, see, I told you so. I knew all along in the morning if it doesn't work out. No, you're right. The thing is, and I don't mean to call you out, but I know your history, and you're kind of in the New York region.
I'm a Mets fan. I'm not afraid about it. Yeah, I'm a Mets fan, yes.
So I got to watch the Kansas City Royals defeat the New York Mets at Citi Field and win that World Series. I was actually at that game. I got to see it.
You were at Game 5 when Matt Harvey came out in that 9th inning, and that place went nuts. At least I was watching on TV. It looked incredible when he came out for the 9th inning and then, of course, blew the game. It was the most exciting. Now, I was too young to remember the 1985 World Series win for the Royals. So, and I was at that spectacular 2014 run at the K. Game 6 versus the Giants when they just blew them out. It was like 11-6 or something, that game, and then they ultimately lost to the Giants. So the following year, to be at Citi Field and see the Royals defeat the Mets and win the World Series, I must say, a little weird to be away, to see your team win it all in someone else's stadium is a strange feeling. I did not know that you were there. How were the Mets fans towards you?
Dejected. Totally. They were so dispirited.
Okay. But were they rude, obnoxious, anything like that?
I have to confess that was long enough ago that I was still drinking. And so if it was over-the-top assaults on our sensibilities, I was kind of numb to it.
Oh, okay.
If you want to know the truth be told.
No, that's totally fine. Hey,
all I remember is positive. It was a hell of a lot of fun is what I remember having.
Yes.
And no, I don't recall negative interactions with Mets fans. I'm kind of joking a little bit. But sincerely, when the thing was over, Mets fans were so deflated and upset, you almost had to feel sorry for somebody that had to lose that series because it had been so long for both of us. I always like it when two teams that have had dry spells for a very long time, objectively, it's almost hard to see either one win. You want them both to win, right? Because it's been so long.
The Mets are the only childhood team I have left. I never had an NFL team. This was the only team I do have from my childhood, and I have not been alive for a World Series win. So. And by the way, I was very happy. I know you've got the connections to Philadelphia, and they're your National League team. Yep. But I was thrilled last night because, as you know, I spent a few years there at Villanova going to college, went to a few Mets-Phillies games, and those fans are brutal. Beer on the head, hot dogs thrown at me, rappers. It is a brutal place when you're an opposing fan in Philadelphia.
It is rough, but I will say you want to talk about equally rough this morning is every one of those Phillies fans is calling for the head of their Phillies. Like they want to fire everybody. That's the Phillies fans, they'll throw you a parade until you lose, and then it's fire every one of the bums,
Trade Bryce Harper, the whole thing.
That's right. Bryce Harper's a scumbag. Get him out of here right now. It's amazing. On a dime they'll turn.
Well, let's transition out of that to scumbags here in our area. How's that sound?
We got plenty of them.
Ain't that the truth? Let's focus on this story at KU. Listen, I know with the Herzog Foundation, you guys are looking at alternative ways to educate young people. And we know that there is a wrench right now in the world of higher education and what that looks like for so many people. This, to me, what this guy said, in case people missed it, I'll play the audio, and then we'll get Chris to react to it and talk about what higher education needs to be doing here.
Guys are smarter than girls. You got some serious problems. That's what frustrates me. There are going to be some males in our society that will refuse to vote for a potential female president because they don't think females are smart enough to be president. We could line all those guys up and shoot them. They clearly don't understand the way the world works. Did I say that? Scratch that from the recording. I don't want the deans hearing that I said that.
All right, Chris, I know you guys have been all over this with the Herzog Foundation and The Lion, your publication online, but what is the takeaway in terms of how we should apply this to thinking about higher education at large?
Yeah, first of all, can we talk about the heavy breathing? I mean, I'm not exactly the pinnacle of health. Dr. Tag has helped me lose quite a bit of weight, but what is the guy's winded just walking across the room?
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, little Rex Archer there. That's right.
That the truth?
No, just a weird. There's a very Tim Walz vibe about this guy, isn't there?
Yeah,
really
yes.
Weird. Mr. Professor Lowcock, his name, incidentally.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
No, this is. You know what it is? We're in a time where a presidential candidate and a former president was nearly killed twice. And to me, this is now a political movement that is home to very, very dangerous people, and they occupy many of our university classrooms, I'm sorry to say. Censorship isn't enough. Now we're talking about full-blown potential assassination. This is dangerous stuff. And so for a professor to tell students that disagree with him or them at the ballot box that they should be shot, I mean, if this is the kind of thing that's being entertained in some of our upper echelon universities like the University of Kansas, this says to me that political violence has now been mainstreamed in our universities. And I don't know about you. You have children that you're going to send off to school eventually. Do you want to spend tens of thousands of dollars for professors to tell your children political violence is acceptable if you disagree? That's the antithesis of higher education and higher learning and debate and discussion, is it not?
No, you're right.
Yeah.
So what do you do? So what do you? I mean, your kids are obviously college age or close to it, much closer than mine, obviously, who are very little. I think about it, and I think the landscape's going to be way different in 10 to 12 years than it is today. It's changing as we speak about it right now. Where are you at?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, and I do hope if people go to readlion.com, you can read about the work that Turning Point is doing. For instance, at the Lion, they profile in this story the great chapter on the University of Kansas campus, the Turning Point USA chapter. They engaged on this right away, and quite frankly, there are a lot of young people on college campuses, like we covered in this story, who took this to the university and blew it up and made it an issue. And so KU has to, I realized what they issued as an apology or addressing this publicly was kind of an excuse. Mm-hmm. Who knows if this professor is actually going to be dealt with? I mean, certainly if this were somebody on the conservative side or the right side, they'd be fired without question. But we always have to hear about intentions and that sort of thing when it happens from somebody on the left. So what do? I say that there are a couple of things. Yes, it's great that there are chapters like Turning Point and young people that are engaging on their college campuses. But also, I have to say, I kind of reject the idea that the university structure for going forward is the only way. I know that there are a lot of companies now that are hiring, training up from within. My kids and I talk about this a lot because they are at that age right now. They're taking some entry-level courses to get that out of the way at a much cheaper rate at community college. And then, so they're looking at professions now and talking to people about how can I advance in this place that I want to work without going off to a university setting. And I think a lot of companies are starting to entertain it. Like, we would like to train you up in this profession our way. And so we'll either cover your college or we'll actually teach you ourselves. Like Walmart's doing that now, Pete. So yeah. My hope, this is a hope, it's maybe not an answer directly to your question, but my hope is culturally, corporate America is starting to see it's more useful to just train young people up and educate them to advance in their companies without sending them off into debt to these 4-year indoctrination factories. That's my hope.
I think so, too. Now, to tie it back to KU, you mentioned the Turning Point chapter. It's interesting because I know plenty of, conservative, traditional families who have kids at KU who, by the way, their kids did not lose or change their values being at KU, despite what we think of KU as being. So there's a way to do it, but I understand the professors, they're not in line with where a lot of these students are. So is there something to do when it comes to holding the colleges and the universities accountable?
That is a big question. One I'm not sure I have the answer to immediately. I do know that since I've been working at the Herzog Foundation and at readline.com, we write about stories all the time of Christian universities. There are a lot of alternative universities, much like there are alternatives to public school. There are a lot of alternatives to public universities. That's one thing, just not necessarily accepting that you have to send them.
Did we lose him? Oh, there he is.
Sorry about that, Pete.
No, that's all right.
Had a little hiccup there. What we do know about higher education is they are hemorrhaging money. I mean, they're losing money quickly. Mm-hmm. People are rejecting the idea they got to go off and pay tens of thousands of dollars a semester, pay to live on campus and that whole thing. The model, I think, is crumbling before our eyes. I think the market is really starting to dictate. Families don't see the value in it, the value in the paper you get at the end of it, or the indoctrination you're getting while you're there. And I'm prayerful the marketplace is correcting this, Pete.
Well, I am as well. I totally agree. Ideally, the marketplace corrects it. But you know as well as I do, especially with these state universities, they're subsidized so heavily by taxpayer dollars at the state level. And that's where I just wonder what the state's legislative role is going to be. And when a lot of the people in the legislature have degrees from their state universities, as much as they will say, hey, I don't like the professor saying this, are they really going to do what needs to be done and make the hard decisions? I think that's an issue in red states and blue states because of the pride in athletics and everything else that surrounds these institutions.
The sports drives,
yes.
And I love sports, and so do you.
Yep.
I'm not an anti-sports guy. Don't misunderstand. It's just that the unfortunate thing is we as a culture let our academic decision-making for our children be driven by what sports are going on at the school or what sports they can play. And I got to tell you something. That is such a colossal – that's just such an error in our thinking as consumers of education. Why in the world all of our decision-making is driven by who's the winning football team, dictating the future of your children? I don't get it, but I see it time and again. I still talk to people our age that say, well, your kid's going to have to go off to KU and wear the red and blue, rock chalk, and they get it. It's that whole thing, that vibe, because I did it and my daddy's daddy did it and we had fun and tailgating, and it's like, well, I'm glad for your memories and your good vibes and all that stuff, but that's the same thing Kamala Harris is running on, and I'm not voting for her either.
Well, that's exactly right. Chris Stigall is here, of course, you know the voice well, on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So when we look at what is next, I think what's going to happen here is local media will bury this story. They can use the Royals as an excuse to not cover it, rah, rah, Royals, and we're all rah, rah, Royals, but they will not cover the story, especially like they would if it was involving different political persuasions. So we've just got to stay on this thing, right, and make sure there are some repercussions of some kind, and KU doesn't get away with kind of letting everyone forget about this?
I got to tell you, it's becoming a national story, and thanks to the great team at readlion.com and the Lion folks that wrote this story, it's starting to blow. We're getting a lot of calls from media around the country that want to talk about it. So
good.
Kansas City media can try to bury it all they'd like, but the Lion is keeping it alive all over the country, joining radio shows like yours to talk about this today. So no, we're certainly not going to quit covering it at readline.com.
No way, and you shouldn't. Well, Chris, enjoy the game tonight, and I hope you are the reason they get the victory.
Do you really? Now, honestly, are you pulling for the Royals?
No,
I know you love the Mets, but you're pulling for the Royals until they get there.
Chris,
is that it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And listen, I grew up with Yankee fans, and they are the worst fans on the planet outside of Phillies fans. All my old buddies are Yankees fans. I grew up in the 90s dealing with all that nonsense. I can't stand the Yankees.
Did you see George Brett last night just openly talking about his disdain and hate for the Yankees on the broadcast?
Yes.
George is so funny. I hate the Yankees, he just says, stone cold. I hate them. I want to defeat them. I love it.
No, trust me. And the Royals can be my American League team, just like another Phillies are your National League team. So I am happy with that, but especially with it being the Yankees. Trust me. I was hooting and hollering last night for the Royals just like I was for the Mets in the game prior. So I'm going to be pulling big time.
As a sports guy, the statistics say, right, it's very, very difficult to not only win tonight, but then go on the road and win it away. That's tough, right? That doesn't happen often.
Well, I think it was on TV last night, the team that wins game 3 in a 1-1 series has gone on to win 73% of the series. So the Royals have a 27% chance. It's not awful. They can do it.
No, it can happen. Maybe this is the year.
And when they call Stigall out of the bullpen tonight, we'll all know that he's the reason why. Hey,
the one thing I do know, if that happens, I won't be hungover in the morning. That's the difference between now and 10 years ago.
Well, and that is we are all grateful for that, Chris.
Great to see you, Pete. Thank you for having me.
Likewise. Thanks so much. He is the great Chris Stigall. You hear his voice still on KCMO. He mentioned his good buddy, Dr. Tague, as well. So all good stuff and a lot of good vibes. Real good vibes here on KCMO, not the fake good vibes that the VP is going for.